Welcome back to Good Morning Central Oregon. These are just a few of the books from us today. We have Chicken, which was written by David Sterry, Pride and Promiscuity, and I love this, The Lost Sex Scenes of Jane Austen by Dennis Ashton and Arielle Eckstedt. And then the one that they wrote together is Satchel Says, which is the wit, wisdom, and world of Leroy Satchel Paige. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you.
I am thrilled to meet you, especially since getting the press kit, and actually you had me going with the press kit about Pride and Promiscuity because I actually thought it was real.
Well, you're not the first person to think that.
That's wonderful. Now, you guys obviously have put your passion into print. How did you do that? I mean, I think when somebody writes a book, they don't realize what a trial it is trying to get published, because it's not easy. It's not, there are not publishers out there waiting for your book, right?
Well, it's paradoxical, because in fact there are publishers out there waiting for your book. Yes. The question is, how do you get your passion from your living room to the publisher who's waiting for you?
Right.
And this is what we discuss in our workshop. And we use our books as examples. When I was a little tiny kid, Satchel Paige was always my hero. I just loved him. I thought he was so funny and so regal. And there's a huge poster of Satchel Paige in my house. And Arielle came in my house one day and she said, "Who's that?" I said, "Oh, that's Satchel Paige. He was the greatest pitcher in the history of baseball, and the greatest comedian that America's ever produced, and the most wonderful philosopher of the 20th century." She said, "Well, there's a book right there."
Yeah.
Right under my nose, and I didn't even see it. It was the thing that I loved more than anything in life, really, in some ways. But I would have never thought about making a book out of it, except that Arielle pointed it out to me, and from there, we put the whole thing together and got it to a publisher. And Arielle has a similar story about Pride and Promiscuity.
Yeah, you know, I've been in publishing for 10 years now, so you would think I would know when something was a book or if I could write a book, etc. But so many of us doubt our abilities to write a book. So I figured that's for the people that I work with, not for myself. So even though I had been a fan of Jane Austen since I was 12 years old and read all of her books numerous times, I thought since I didn't get a graduate degree in English literature that I couldn't write about her.
Right.
So it took a cab ride in New York City where a friend said, "Wouldn't it be funny if someone found lost sex scenes of Jane Austen?" And I heard that idea and I thought, this time I have to do this. So my friend and I got together and we put together a proposal for this book. And I have to say, I have never had more fun than in writing this.
Really?
Because it's again, something I loved so much. And to be able to spend the time with her work, and even though this book is a parody, I really got to explore her in a whole new way. And then seeing your book out in bookstores is a very exciting moment.
That must be weird. Like seeing your name on the book, you know, I just couldn't imagine.
It's weird and wonderful, frankly, yes. Yes, it is.
That's a lot of pressure, though, writing a book. Because do you ever think, what if I'm writing the book that nobody else is going to like or read?
Well, you know, the whole notion of pressure is a relative one, because my grandfather was a coal miner. And you know, to me, that's pressure, going into coal mines before the sun comes up and going out when the sun's already down, that's pressure. So it's all relative. Now, I didn't really feel the pressure of writing this book because, again, it was something I loved. I went to the library and I looked through all the old archival footage and newspapers, and I was just like a pig rolling in mud, you know. I just couldn't get enough of it because I was already in love with the subject. And that's one of the things that our workshop is about. So many people write books about what they think people want to read as opposed to what they really love. And that's what we emphasize. Find the thing you love most in life, and that's going to be your book. Arielle, again, has a great story about a client.
Yeah, we had someone come to us who was a psychologist for many years and really was sick of his job and had enough of it. And he thought, well, at least I'll write about it, and that'll be different. So he wrote a proposal about psychology, and he sent it in, and we took this man out to lunch. And during lunch, he pulled out a list from his back pocket, and it was this very, very long list. We said, you know, what is that? And he said, oh, this is my beer list. And he had collected a list of beers, over 1,000 beers from countries all over the world, where he had written different characteristics, how dark they were, what food they went with, etc. And we said to him, Bob, that's your book. And now that book is in print. It's called The Beer Lover's Rating Guide. It has sold over 300,000 copies. He is no longer a psychologist, and he goes around the world lecturing about beer, which is his true love.
Wow.
So this is a great example of putting your passion into print.
And when we tell this, when we tell this story during our workshop, and we get to the part where he lectures around the world about beer, you see all the men in the audience going, whoa, that sounds good to me. I'd like to be the beer guy.
Michelob, Blitz, I've tried them all.
Right, exactly.
And all the weird little brew pubs you could go into, and you have to drink beer. That's your job now.
Bummer,
Right,
you know.
exactly.
And what people don't realize is that there are very concrete things that you can do during the steps of getting a book, in order to get a book published. So from the proposal stage to finding an agent to finding a publisher and then promoting your book once it's out into the world, which is one of the hardest parts to publish, which people don't realize. We really help people to understand, break this down into easy steps that anyone can do to get a book published.
Right. Folks don't realize that once you do write a book, it's not just out there. You have to go and talk to people about your book.
Yes, you do.
If you want people to read it, they've got to know about it.
That's right. That's
so,
right.
which is kind of what you guys are doing today.
Right?
Exactly. In many ways, it's more difficult to promote your book than it is to write your book. And people, you're right, don't realize that.
Right.
And what's interesting, I think, our workshop is that when you sit down to write a proposal for a book, you're not actually writing a whole book.
See, I was going to ask you, so you write the proposal before you even write the book?
Yes. And a proposal is generally 35 to 50 pages. So it's daunting to think of writing a 200-page book, but 35 to 50 pages is not quite so daunting as it might seem. And we lay out, soup to nuts, exactly what you need to do to write your proposal and how you go about finding an agent and a publisher. And it's when you break it down, like anything in life, steps that you take. And also what we emphasize is, rather than thinking about the big picture and how there's a million other authors out there who are trying to get done what you're doing, just think about the first step that you take. Think about the first section of your proposal you write. It might only be a page long. Well, anyone can write a page. And then you write the next page, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just a series of small steps rather than this huge daunting task.
Do you recommend having friends or family or someone you respect look at your work before you submit it? I mean, do you recommend the opinions of others?
Absolutely, because what happens is writers get so involved in the work that they're doing, into the nitty-gritty of it, that it's very hard to see the larger picture. You know, part of a proposal that people have to write is a summary of their book in one page. Well, if you've just written 200 pages of something, it's very hard to figure out what you're going to take out from those 200 pages. So if you start pitching your book to friends, family, people you don't know, then you get a much better perspective of what works and what doesn't. And it doesn't mean you have to take the advice of everyone, but if there are consistent voices that you hear when you're pitching your book, you need to take those into account.
Yeah, like when they say, it stinks. Right. I can't believe you made me read this. I wasted my life. We want to remind you that Arielle and David will be at Paulina Springs Book Company tomorrow.
Yes.
That's
at
right.
5 p.m. And that's in Sisters, folks who don't know. And then at Barnes & Noble, they're going to be there on Sunday at 2 p.m.
Yes.
That's right.
And do we have to register for this or sign up?
Just show up. Yes.
Fantastic. So all of you who have been dreaming about writing a book about things that you love, you need to talk with these guys because they'll help you out. They've been there, done that, and they'll let you know how to do it. Thank you.
You know what I really want?
Yeah.
Joe's hat.
I know.
Joe's got a cool hat.
I wanted it too, but you got to talk to Judy Tugwell now.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah. We'll let you know. We'll give you her number. Judy, expect a call from David.
Thank you very
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with Diane Abernathy. She's going to talk to us about her From the Ground Up segment. Stay with us.